Here we go again. One long uninterrupted stream for Episode 1, Season 4 of NewsRadio. Episode 1 of Season 4 opens by re-establishing the chaotic ecosystem of WNYX while simultaneously introducing subtle shifts in character dynamics that hint at both continuity and escalation. As the staff returns to their familiar routines, it becomes immediately clear that whatever break or transition occurred before this point has done little to stabilize anyone's behavior. Dave Nelson steps back into his role as the station manager with a renewed but fragile sense of determination, attempting to impose structure and professionalism on a team that seems almost instinctively opposed to both. The episode begins with a triggering event that appears relatively minor on the surface, such as a scheduling issue, a programming change, or a new directive from Jimmy James. But like most situations in this environment, it quickly becomes the catalyst for a cascade of misunderstandings and ego-driven reactions. Jimmy, with his signature mix of enthusiasm and unpredictability, introduces an idea or decision that he believes will improve the station. Yet his lack of follow-through and tendency to shift focus almost immediately leaves the staff to interpret and implement his vision on their own, which proves to be a recipe for confusion. Bill McNeil reacts in a way that centers entirely around his own status, either seeing the change as an opportunity to assert dominance or as a threat to his perceived importance, leading him to behave in ways that are both theatrical and counterproductive. Lisa Miller attempts to approach the situation logically, positioning herself as one of the few voices of reason in the room, but her efforts are consistently undermined by the irrational behavior of her co-workers. Matthew Brock, ever eager to be helpful, latches onto a partial understanding of the situation and runs with it, inadvertently spreading misinformation and complicating matters further. Joe Garelli maintains his detached and sarcastic perspective, offering commentary that highlights the absurdity of what is happening while making little effort to intervene. Catherine Duke, if present in the dynamic at this stage, brings her blunt and confrontational energy into the mix, challenging others and escalating tensions whenever she feels slighted or disagrees. As the episode progresses, the initial issue becomes increasingly distorted through layers of miscommunication, with each character interpreting events according to their own biases and priorities. Dave attempts to coordinate a coherent response, assigning tasks and setting expectations, but his plans are quickly derailed as individuals either ignore his instructions, misunderstand them, or actively pursue their own agendas. The humor builds through rapid exchanges and overlapping subplots, with characters frequently talking past one another, creating a sense of controlled chaos that intensifies as the episode moves forward. Bill may attempt to take control of a particular aspect of the situation only to overcomplicate it. Lisa might try to quietly fix problems behind the scenes but become visibly frustrated as new issues emerge faster than she can resolve them. Matthew continues to misinterpret key details. Joe provides dry observations that momentarily cut through the noise. Catherine pushes conflicts to their limits, and Jimmy drifts in and out of the situation, occasionally reigniting chaos with new ideas or abandoning the original issue altogether. Dave's frustration grows as his attempts to maintain order become increasingly futile, highlighting the central tension between his desire for structure and the inherently unpredictable nature of his team. The midpoint of the episode often features a convergence of these escalating threads, resulting in a chaotic sequence where multiple conflicts collide, characters argue simultaneously, and the original issue becomes almost unrecognizable. This moment serves as both a comedic peak and a turning point, after which the energy begins to shift toward a resolution that is less about solving the problem and more about allowing the chaos to dissipate on its own. As the consequences of everyone's actions become apparent, plans fall apart, misunderstandings are revealed, and the gap between intention and outcome becomes increasingly clear. Yet rather than leading to meaningful change, these realizations are often ignored or quickly forgotten. Bill may attempt to rewrite events in his favor. Lisa might express frustration at the lack of accountability, Matthew may acknowledge confusion without fully understanding it. Joe continues his detached commentary. Catherine remains unapologetic. And Jimmy either declares the situation a success or moves on entirely, leaving unresolved issues behind. Dave, caught in the center of it all, begins to accept that his role is not to eliminate chaos, but to navigate it. A realization that adds a layer of dry irony to his character as the supposed authority figure in an environment that resists authority. The latter part of the episode focuses on the gradual return to routine, with characters slipping back into their roles as if nothing significant has occurred. The contrast between the scale of the chaos and the ease with which it is dismissed underscores one of the show's core themes. That dysfunction is not an anomaly, but a constant state. The final moments typically include a closing joke or ironic twist that reinforces this idea, perhaps introducing a new minor conflict just as things settle or highlighting the persistence of existing tensions, leaving the audience with the sense that while individual situations may come and go, the underlying dynamic remains unchanged. And that it is precisely this ongoing cycle of misunderstanding, ego, and reluctant coexistence that defines the world of news radio, making each episode both self-contained and part of a larger pattern of comedic disorder that continues to evolve without ever truly resolving, ensuring that the interactions between these distinct and often incompatible personalities remain the driving force behind the show's humor and appeal as the characters continue to navigate their shared environment in ways that are simultaneously frustrating, absurd, and consistently entertaining, reinforcing the idea that in this workplace chaos is not something to be fixed, but something to be lived with, and perhaps even relied upon as the source of its unique and enduring comedic energy. And even as the episode appears to settle into a familiar rhythm after the central conflict has seemingly burned itself out, there is still a lingering sense that the earlier events have subtly reshaped the interpersonal dynamics within the office. Not in any meaningful or lasting way, but in small, almost imperceptible shifts that influence how the characters interact with one another. Dave, now operating with a slightly more cautious mindset, begins to anticipate disruptions before they fully materialize, attempting to preemptively address issues with measured responses that quickly unravel as soon as they encounter the unpredictable nature of his staff. Bill continues to cling to his inflated sense of self-importance, frequently referencing the earlier situation in ways that cast him in a more favorable light. Even when those interpretations are clearly detached from reality, his need for validation driving him to insert himself into conversations where he is neither needed nor particularly welcome. Lisa, increasingly aware of the futility of trying to impose logic on an illogical environment, adopts a more pragmatic approach, choosing her battles carefully and allowing certain absurdities to pass unchallenged while still stepping in when the situation becomes too chaotic too. Ignore Matthew, ever eager to contribute, begins to repeat behaviors or phrases he observed during the earlier conflict, believing them to be effective strategies, but his lack of understanding leads him to apply them incorrectly, often at the worst possible moments, reigniting confusion and occasionally sparking new disagreements. Joe remains the steady observer, his dry humor and detached perspective serving as a counterbalance to the heightened emotions around him, though there are fleeting moments where his engagement seems to deepen, suggesting that even he is not entirely immune to the influence of the surrounding chaos. Catherine maintains her assertive and confrontational stance, unwilling to concede any point and quick to challenge others, her interactions often escalating minor issues into larger disputes that echo the earlier turmoil, while Jimmy drifts unpredictably between involvement and distraction, occasionally revisiting the original issue with renewed enthusiasm or introducing new ideas that complicate matters further. His leadership style, or lack thereof, continuing to be a major source of instability within the workplace. As conversations unfold, the episode highlights the cyclical nature of the office dynamic, with patterns of misunderstanding, conflict, and resolution repeating in slightly altered forms, creating a sense of continuity that ties the narrative together. The humor in this phase becomes more nuanced, relying on character-driven interactions and subtle callbacks rather than large-scale chaos, allowing each personality to shine in smaller, more focused moments. Dave's attempts at control become less about enforcing rules and more about navigating personalities, a shift that reflects his growing acceptance of the environment he is in, though this acceptance is tinged with a persistent frustration that never fully dissipates. As the episode approaches its final moments, the characters gradually return to their routines, the earlier conflict fading into the background as new, smaller issues begin to take its place. Bill resumes his authoritative broadcasting persona. Lisa continues her work with a watchful eye. Matthew carries on with cheerful determination despite lingering confusion. Joe settles back into his observational role. Catherine remains unapologetically intense. And Jimmy either moves on entirely or becomes absorbed in a new idea, effectively resetting the dynamic without resolving the underlying issues. Dave, left to reflect on everything that has transpired, reaches a quiet understanding that this pattern is not only inevitable but integral to the identity of the workplace. The final beat of the episode likely underscores this realization with a small but telling moment. Perhaps a new misunderstanding beginning to form or a seemingly resolved issue resurfacing in an unexpected way, reinforcing the idea that in the world of news radio chaos is not a disruption but a constant presence, shaping every interaction and ensuring that no matter how many times order is attempted, it will always give way to the unpredictable and often absurd nature of the people within it, leaving the audience with a sense of continuity and anticipation for the next iteration of this ongoing cycle of comedic dysfunction.